You think no contact is a trick to make her miss you, but the moment you use it like a trick, you've already lost the point. You think women come back because you disappeared? No, they come back because for the first time you stopped disappearing from yourself. Listen carefully. Most men get this completely backwards. They think no contact is silence with an agenda. Silence as pressure. Silence as strategy. Silence as emotional blackmail. And that is exactly why their silence feels weak, not powerful. Because even when they stop texting, they're still chasing, mentally chasing, emotionally chasing, spiritually chasing. Still checking her stories, still rereading old messages, still waking up hoping today is the day she breaks. That's not no contact. That's obsession without typing. That's withdrawal disguised as discipline. And if you need reminders like this, subscribe now because you do not need more comfort. You need more truth. You need your mind corrected when your emotions try to drag you back into old weakness. You need to hear what your excuses don't want to hear. Here's what it really means when a woman comes back after no contact. It does not mean your silence manipulated her. It means your absence forced reality to speak where your presence used to beg. It means the fog cleared. It means the emotional noise stopped. It means she finally had to feel you without access to you. That is different, very different. Because when you were constantly available, constantly explaining, constantly reassuring, constantly trying to fix, she never had to confront your actual value. She only had to manage your availability. She only had to respond to your energy. She only had to react to your pursuit. But when you stop, when you truly stop, now something changes. Now the fantasy dies. Now the test begins. Now she has to sit with what life feels like when your attention is no longer on tap. And most of you never reach that stage because you break the silence too early. You panic. You rationalize. You tell yourself, I just want closure. No, you want one more hit. You tell yourself, I just want to be mature. No, you want to keep a door open because you're terrified of being forgotten. You tell yourself, I don't want her to think I don't care. But the truth is you're afraid to let your absence deliver a message your words never could. That fear is the whole problem. You have been trained to believe that love is proving, chasing, persuading, overgiving. You have been trained to think that if you just explain yourself clearly enough, love will finally become fair. If you just care hard enough, she'll understand. If you just stay patient enough, she'll choose you right. But attraction does not work like pity. Respect does not grow from overavailability. Desire does not deepen when you make yourself emotionally cheap. Read that again in your mind. Emotionally cheap. That's what happens when your whole identity starts orbiting one woman's attention. You become easy to access, easy to predict, easy to delay, easy to put on hold. And what is always available is rarely valued. Not because people are cruel, because human nature gets numb to what it no longer has to earn. That's called overexposure. And overexposure kills mystery. It kills tension. It kills consequence. It kills the felt sense that losing you would actually mean losing something real. So when no contact is done properly, not as a performance, not as a tactic, but as a real withdrawal of energy, a real return to self, a real refusal to keep bleeding into a place that no longer honors you, something happens. She doesn't just notice your silence. She notices your weight. She notices the missing stability, the missing certainty, the missing emotional supply she quietly assumed would always be there. She notices that life feels different when you're not standing there holding the emotional frame. But before you get arrogant, understand this. She does not come back because she is weak. She does not come back because women are simple. She comes back because absence reveals truth. Sometimes the truth is that she misses your steadiness. Sometimes the truth is that she misses how safe she felt around your groundedness. Sometimes the truth is that she confused your consistency for something replaceable and reality corrected her. And sometimes she comes back because your silence interrupted a pattern she thought she controlled. Now let's go deeper, because this is where most men still miss it. The reason no contact works has less to do with her psychology than your energy. If you go silent but remain emotionally chained, your silence carries need. If you go silent but secretly wait at the door, Your silence carries fear. If you go silent just to get a reaction, your silence is loud with desperation. Women feel that. Maybe not consciously, but they feel it. The same way you can feel when someone says the right words with the wrong spirit. The same way you can feel when confidence is rehearsed. The same way you can feel when detachment is fake. Fake silence repels. Real silence resets. Real silence says, I will not force what does not flow. Real silence says, I will not beg for clarity from confusion. Real silence says, I would rather lose access than lose self-respect. That is power. That is gravity. That is why it lands. Because the hard truth is this. The woman you keep trying to convince is usually responding to the version of you that no longer stands tall, not the best of you. The bent version. The pleading version. The hyper-explaining version. The version that abandoned his own standards to preserve connection. And once a woman sees a man betray himself to keep her, something changes in how she experiences him. Even if she still cares. Even if she still has feelings. She feels the fracture. Why? Root cause. Because respect is not built on words. It is built on congruence, on alignment, on whether your behavior tells the truth about what you claim to value. You say you want reciprocity, but you accept crumbs. You say you want honesty, but you tolerate mixed signals. You say you want peace, but you volunteer for chaos. You say you know your worth, but your choices keep arguing with your mouth. That's called self-betrayal. And self-betrayal is expensive. It costs you your edge. It costs you your sleep. It costs you your focus, your gym sessions, your work quality, your appetite, your posture, your peace. It makes you stare at your phone like it contains oxygen. It makes you interpret breadcrumbs like prophecy. It makes you call anxiety love and inconsistency chemistry. It makes you shrink your standards so you can keep a fantasy alive. And the longer you do that, the more your life starts rotting from the inside, while you tell yourself you're just being patient. Patient? No. You are being trained. Trained to accept less. Trained to chase instability. Trained to measure yourself by response time. Trained to confuse emotional chaos with emotional depth. And that training will follow you into every room if you do not break it. This is why no contact matters. Not because it punishes her, because it interrupts your addiction. It cuts the cord between your worth and her attention. It gives your nervous system a chance to come off the roller coaster. It exposes how much of your identity had been outsourced to one person's validation. And when that exposure happens, you have a choice. You can either use the silence to stalk, fantasize, and suffer, or you can use the silence to rebuild. You stop checking. You stop hovering. You stop reaching. You stop translating ambiguity into hope. You stop making excuses for what your gut already knows. You stop negotiating with disrespect. You stop calling your lack of boundaries love. Then slowly something stronger returns. Your mind clears. Your breathing settles. Your day stops revolving around one emotional variable. You remember that your life has structure, that your body needs training, that your work needs your attention, that your future cannot be built while your emotions are kneeling in the past. You remember you had a mission before this woman ever entered your life. You remember that your name means something. You remember that being chosen by someone else is not the highest form of success. Choosing yourself correctly is. And that is when the energy changes. Because now if she returns, she is not meeting the same man she left in emotional pieces. She is meeting a man who has reassembled himself. A man who is slower to speak, cleaner in thought, harder to shake. A man who does not greet her return like rain in a drought. A man who listens, observes, assesses. A man who no longer sees contact as validation, but as information. That's the man. The man does not perform indifference. He lives from groundedness. The man does not use silence to control. He uses distance to tell the truth. The man does not become cold, he becomes clear. The man does not rush to reopen access. He watches whether actions match words. The man does not confuse being wanted with being valued. The man does not surrender his standards because his feelings got activated. The man has boundaries that do not shake every time loneliness speaks. He has a life that exists outside of romantic turbulence. He wakes up with direction. He trains his body because discipline stabilizes the mind. He handles his responsibilities because chaos in your schedule becomes chaos in your standards. He does not gossip about what happened to make himself feel desired. He does not parade fake abundance to mask emptiness. He does not need to win the breakup. He needs to win himself back. That man is attractive for a reason, not because he mastered tricks, because he stopped leaking. He stopped over-explaining. He stopped auditioning. He stopped trying to be chosen by betraying what he knows is true. His presence has weight because it is not begging to be approved. His silence has weight because it is not a performance. His attention has value because he no longer hands it out in panic. And yes, that is often when women feel it. That is often when they circle back, not because they were conquered, because reality is louder when a solid man withdraws from the pattern, because your absence can reveal what your overpresence used to hide, because once you stop flooding the space with effort, the truth of the connection has room to breathe. But hear me carefully. Her return is not the reward. Your reset is the reward. That is the reframe most men need. You are not doing no contact to get her back. You are doing it to get your clarity back. If she returns, good. Now you can evaluate from strength. If she doesn't, good. Now you are free to build without illusion. Either way, the win is the same if you do this correctly. You come back to yourself. So, what do? You do this cleanly. You accept the break in reality. No bargaining, no last dramatic essay, no just checking in, no fishing for reassurance disguised as maturity. You let the silence stand. You remove the artificial lifelines, mute the stories, archive the thread, stop visiting digital graveyards to reopen emotional wounds. If you keep feeding the loop, don't pretend you're healing. That's not healing. That's self-harm with Wi-Fi. You get your body under command. Lift, run, box, walk, sweat until your mind remembers it belongs inside a discipline system. Pain moves when the body moves. You redirect obsession into structure. Wake up at a set time, handle your work, fix your room, clean your finances, read more, scroll less, build routines strong enough to hold you in your feelings. Get loud. Freedom is not found in mood. It is found in order. You tell the truth to yourself without poetry. If she wanted to be clear, she would be clear. If she wanted to reciprocate, you would feel it. If you have to decode basic respect, the answer is already insulting. You stop romanticizing potential. Potential is a beautiful word that has wasted years of men's lives. Look at what is. Look at what repeats. Look at the pattern, not the promise. You stop making your heart available to inconsistency. Access is earned now. Conversation is earned now. Your emotional labor is earned now. That is not bitterness. That is standards. You build a life so full of purpose that you are no longer starving for one person to make you feel significant. Purpose first. Then relationship. Ground first, then romance. Identity first, then intimacy. In that order always. And if she comes back, you do not melt because your fantasy got a pulse again. You do not act cold for revenge either. You stay centered. You let her talk. You watch for accountability. You watch for consistency. You watch whether she is returning to reconnect or just returning to relieve her own discomfort. Big difference. One builds, one consumes. Ask yourself the harder question. If she came back today, would you even be ready to lead differently? Or would you just hand your piece back to the same dynamic because you missed her? That question matters. Because many men spend weeks trying to get a woman back and 0 weeks becoming the kind of man who can hold the relationship without collapsing inside. You need more than reunion. You need transformation. Because if your standards are still weak, if your boundaries are still negotiable, if your life is still empty enough that one woman becomes your emotional weather system, then even if she comes back, you will lose yourself again. Different day, same trap. This is why the real work is not getting her attention. The real work is becoming unhookable, becoming a man who can feel deeply without drowning, becoming a man who can love without kneeling, becoming a man who can walk away from confusion without needing to be the villain or the victim. Just clear, just solid, just done with abandoning himself. And understand this part with your whole chest. Self-respect is not loud. It does not need speeches. It does not need cryptic captions. It does not need fake stoicism. Self-respect is quiet. It is the decision not to chase what keeps wounding you. It is the discipline to hold your ground when loneliness starts bargaining. It is the maturity to let someone misunderstand you rather than over-explain your boundaries into the dirt. That's called inner authority. And once you have that, everything changes. Your eye contact changes. Your decisions change. Your standards change. The kind of woman you entertain changes. The kind of behavior you tolerate changes. Your whole life gets sharper because you are no longer operating from fear of loss. You are operating from commitment to truth. Truth over comfort. Reality over fantasy. Standards over scraps. Peace over drama. Self-respect over access. That is the shift. So, if you're in no contact right now, stop asking when will she come back? Ask, what in me was so starved that I kept chasing what did not choose me clearly? Ask, what standard did I betray? Ask, what part of my life became so empty that this one connection started feeling like my whole identity? Those questions will save you more than any reply ever could. Because when you answer them honestly, you stop being the man waiting by the phone. You become the man building a life. You become the man who can love from fullness instead of hunger. You become the man whose presence is a gift, not a guarantee. And whether she returns or not, you win in a way desperation never can touch. So no, the goal is not to make women come crawling back. The goal is to become the kind of man who no longer needs anyone crawling, chasing, proving, or performing. The goal is mutuality.
Clarity, respect.
The goal is to stand so firmly in your own center that anything misaligned has to either rise to meet you or fall away. That is self-reclamation. That is masculine calm. That is power without noise. And once you live there, you stop fearing silence. You understand it. You use it. You let it expose what words were covering up. You let it clean your mind. You let it return you to yourself. Then if someone comes back, they are not meeting a man in withdrawal. They are meeting a man in command. Remember that. You are not the one left behind. You are not the one begging to be seen. You are not the backup plan for someone else's
confusion.
You are not here to perform loyalty to people who only value you in doses. You are not broken because you cared. You were just unguarded with your value. Now you know better. And now you move better. You raise the standard. You protect your peace. You stop chasing closure from the source of the wound. You rebuild your body, your mind, your schedule, your mission. You become harder to manipulate because you are no longer easy to destabilize. You become harder to replace because you are no longer common. Not in energy, not in discipline, not in self-command. That is why things shift. That is why dynamics change. That is why people feel your absence differently. Not because you vanished, because you returned to yourself. You are the answer you were waiting on. Not her text. Not her apology. Not her regret.
You.
Your clarity, your standards, your discipline, your self-respect. That is the answer. So carry that with you. And if you want more truth like this, more clarity when your emotions get noisy, subscribe. Not for me. For the version of you that refuses to go back to emotional weakness. Stay close to this message. Stay close to men who choose truth over fantasy. You belong in a community that calls you forward, not one that excuses your collapse.